Hello, I'm recording this video to give a brief tutorial on how to set up OBS Studio um, in regards to setting up a replay buffer or using your GPU instead of your CPU to record, all that good stuff. So first off, you have to go to their website, OBS project right here, and make sure you download obviously the correct version for your platform. We're going to be using Windows because that's what most people use. So pick which system you have. Obviously, just use Windows 7. OBS Classic, I used to recommend this, but they've made enough improvements to OBS Studio that I believe that OBS Studio is just all in all the 100% better build now. So feel free to download Windows 7 and just download the exe. Running the install, and the install is pretty self-explanatory. Just follow the steps, uncheck anything you don't want. I don't remember it too well, but I am already using OBS Studio currently, so there's no need for me to install it, for I already have OBS right here. So this looks kind of weird because I'm recording the OBS Desktop again, but feel free to, once you got it downloaded, you're going to see something similar to this, right? And profile's kind of blanked out. This is kind of awkward recording something on how to use what I'm recording. But what you can do, I'll give you a brief explanation of what all these do. File, this allows you to just see where you've recorded your stuff and your settings, which is the most important part of this setting up. Edit lets you change how the screen looks, or how certain aspects that you add into your scene work. Preview scaling is just how this box looks, and then everything else is kind of irrelevant right now. Tools, not important. Scene collection lets you change what kind of scene you need. Essentially, you can save multiple sets of scenes, and scenes are essentially just like presets, so you don't have a bunch of settings. Like for instance, if you are running a tournament and you need to have a bunch of overlays like what I use for the Moon sub opens, you can instead use a different scene. I just use default, which just has a bunch of sources, while team overlays and such. So going back to here, that's basically it. So now we're going to go into the settings first off. So taking a look at the settings here, general, don't need to worry about this too much. It's just basic stuff. So the most important thing here to look at here is stream output. It depends on what you want to do essentially with your OBS. So first and foremost, we can talk about recording. Recording is not too difficult. In stream, you can just select streaming services. It doesn't really matter because you're not streaming in this setup. And keep in mind, if you want to set up multiple profiles, you go to the profile button here, and you can choose to make new profiles, and you just select them, and you can save various setting options. I can't click it right now because I'm in the middle of recording, but that's how it works. So settings, we go to output here, and for most users, I would suggest using simple. I can make a video on advanced later on, but if you're watching this video, you're likely wanting the basics of how to use OBS, and advanced gives a lot of essentially under the hood tweaks and stuff to use if you have like a unique graphics card setup, or if you want to squeeze more quality out and you understand what you're doing. But I would suggest using simple mainly. So under bitrate, bitrate is essentially how much your OBS is. I guess the simple way to describe it is how your OBS encodes the data, the thing that you're recording. Higher is better. In local recordings, you can go up to 2,000 or 20,000, even higher. If your computer is having a hard time encoding it, like you're noticing noticeable performance issues when you're recording, you can drop this. But I'd say start around 20,000 and work your way up or down based on what you need. Encoder is how your OBS is going to record what it's going to be doing. A lot of the work is typically encoder is the words. Typically, you're going to see X264 software encoder. That means that your CPU is going to be doing the majority of the legwork when it comes to figuring out how your video process, your video is going to be packed into that data format. This is technically more. This is software encoding is always going to be higher quality, but the issue is you're going to see a noticeable impact on anything you're doing. For instance, if you're playing a game like Overwatch, for instance, you start using that X264 encoder, and you probably are going to need an i7 to not see any negative impacts on your game, like any major negative impacts on your game. I do not have an i7. I have an overclocked i5 4690K to 4.5 gigahertz, and I still don't like using X264 because I just don't like having to compromise game performance for recording, because recording isn't really my livelihood. So instead, I like to use hardware. If you have AMD graphics card, I have an RTX 390, you're going to see AMD. Otherwise, you'll see NVIDIA NSYNC, I believe, or something along those lines. If you have a discrete graphics card like a GTX 1080 or something lower, or if you're on a laptop with a discrete graphics card, you're going to want to use this option if you want to maximize your performance. That means that instead of using your CPU, it'll use your GPU instead. If your GPU is having trouble running the game, you're going to notice an impact drop, but more likely than not, you're not going to note. Most people have. What's the best way to put this? On the PS4 and the Xbox One, right? They also use this encoder, this hardware encoder, and that's what they use on Xbox, for instance, when you double tap that home button and hit X to record that. This is the same issue. This is the same thing where it has your GPU doing it, so you save a lot of CPU power. Audio bitrate is audio quality. Doesn't really matter too much unless you're an audiophile. Encoder preset is basically how good it's going to look. Just use quality, balance, or speed based on what your how it works. Tweak it a bit if you notice some issues when you're running the thing. Custom encoder settings, don't worry about that. And now recording path. If you open up here your file browser, and I like to save mine in videos, right? So let's go. It says it's saved in the captures folder. So if I click on the captures folder here, and then I click here, just click on the bar up here, you'll get a file path that you can just copy and paste. Don't need to learn anything about the file paths. And it'll save it to there as well. This is if you want to have your file names without spaces or not. This is essentially how big your file is going to be. If it's higher quality, it's going to be better. Otherwise, you're going to see compression artifacts, like the image is going to get a bit more muddled, but the files will be smaller, so you can store it on a smaller hard drive, for instance. Recording format, you can choose to record in MP4, FLV, whatnot. However, note that if you record in MP4, if your recording fails, your file is going to be gone. Like, you'll just lose the entire capture. I like to use MP4 mainly because you can record multiple audio tracks with MP4. But if you're worried about like your OBS crashing or something and you really need to have that footage, make sure you record in like MKV or something. Once again, this is the same thing as the encoder in recording, streaming and recording, essentially the same idea. And then this track right here doesn't show up in advanced, as far as I know. I'm fairly certain it only shows up in simple mode, which is why I prefer to use it. Replay buffer is a very, very, very nice setting. Many of you know it as NVIDIA's Shadowplay or AMD's, what was it, Relive? I think that's what they call it. Except now you get more customization with it, and you can select. You have a better option of what you want to record. You don't have to record things in full screen, for instance. So just choose how long you want to record it, 60 seconds, and then it should tell you maximum memory size. But usually you just need to worry about selecting the amount of time that you record it for. So once you select that, audio doesn't matter too much. Just select like what you want your computer to read. You can select headphones or whatever. I use headphones, microphones to read it. Video, select. Well, this isn't really important because this is for streaming. And then hotkeys is the other important thing. If you want to use a replay buffer, you're going to want to use set a control keybind to here. I use Control F6. Once you've set that up, advanced isn't really too important. Sorry. Once you set that up, you simply have to click on this button right here, Start Replay Buffer, and once you click on that, you can do it while recording as well. Your replay buffer is now running, and it's essentially constantly recording, but it's not storing it in your hard drive. It's storing it in like a temporary section. So when you hit your keybind, in my case Control F6, you'll flash save the last 60 seconds to your capture folder. So you can look right here, and if I use Control F6, there it is, right there. That's basically the replay buffer. Now I'll tell you guys about sources. Sources are how you get your game capture itself. Right now I'm using the monitor. If you want to add a monitor source, you right click here on the sources, and then you can select there's a large group of things here, but it's not too difficult once you know what it's all about, right? So if you want to capture a monitor, you select display capture, and then you can select either display 0 or display 1. I have two monitors, so display 0 would be my left one, display 1 would be my right one, and then I have them set up right here. Let's get rid of this. You can right click and choose to remove after you are done with it. And then you can also add your other monitors. So if I want to switch, I can click on this eyeball here. I'll open the monitor 2 and close monitor 1. And now you can see my right monitor over here. So I'll go back to here. The way sources work is whichever one's on top is going to be it works like a stack, right? So the higher up a source is, the more of it you see. Or I guess whichever one's on top is the one you're going to see, right? So a good example, I'll switch over to the Moon Sub. A it'll be better if I just show you here. So if you left click on the capture here, you can shrink it, and then I can open monitor 2, and you can see how monitor 1 is above monitor 2 because it's above on the sources list. So I'm going to resize that back up. And the last thing you need to know is how to set a game capture up. So let's go open let's go with FTL because it's right here. So I'm going to boot FTL and push this over. We'll keep it right here actually. So we have FTL running in the background now, right? We have FTL. It's a game capture. We could just keep it like this, just keep capturing our window, minimize this, and you can see this. But some people don't want to do that. Like let's say you run it in windowed mode, or like FTL is right now, or you just want to, like, let's say you alt tab out, you don't want to show your desktop at all. If that's the case, you can right click here on sources, hover over add, and then select game capture. In this case, make sure to name it whatever you want. We'll name ours FTL, and then create the source. Now here, it normally automatically captures any full screen application, which is what your other programs do. They do it automatically, so you don't even have to mess with sources. But if you don't want to run your games in full screen, it's really difficult to use NVIDIA or AMD's. I'm not sure about NVIDIA, but AMD's proprietary recording software doesn't work unless it's in full screen. So instead, you can choose to capture a specific window. Go over here, and then find your game, FTL. Easy. Don't have to worry about any of this. And when you hit OK, and you close the monitor 1, we now have only an FTL game capture. It looks a bit smaller here because FTL is in a lower resolution. You can obviously expand it, stretch it out a bit, or you can keep it at its native resolution. Yeah. So now you can see that this is the actual game capture, and underneath it is underneath it is the actual window. So we can close out of this now. So that's how you add a game capture if you want to use one. So yeah, I have PUBG, Overwatch, and Dark Souls 3. The final thing to do is talking about how to set up a streaming setup. So we can go back into settings, and keep in mind for streaming you are going to want to use CPU if you can help it. Otherwise, just use GPU. Honestly, it's not too big of a deal. Some snobs might say it looks blurrier, but what matters is your performance. Unless you're like a big streamer, in which case, yeah, go ahead and go for CPU. But at that point, you probably want to upgrade your PC. So, if you go to stream here, select what streaming service you can use. Probably going to use Twitch. Select the server, whatever you're nearest. I'm nearby California, so I'm going to use that one. And then you're going to need to attach a stream key. So, I'm not going to show you my stream key, because that would be stupid. But, let's move this aside here so I can keep watching just in case. If you go to twitch.tv, and then I believe you go to, here, and you want to go to your dashboard. Go to settings. And your stream key will be right there. So once again, click on the top right here, select on dashboard, and then go to settings. And your stream key should be right there. So you just paste that into your thing right here. You go over, once you have the stream key set up, or copied and pasted, you just copy and paste it into this box right here, and whenever you open up a stream by using start streaming, you'll be streaming to that account. Settings wise, if you're unpartnered, you're going to want you only need to pay attention to this if you're looking at streaming. If you're unpartnered, you want to have a video bitrate of around 3000 to 2000. 2000 to 3000 is a good bet, mainly because if you're unpartnered with Twitch, you don't get as much bandwidth. They don't give you as much, so you're going to want to make sure to keep it within reason. If you're unpartnered, the main reason why you want to have it not too high is because your viewers can only see source quality, what you're outputting. They have no option to reduce the quality, which means that a lot of viewers may be put off because they can't actually load your stream because they don't have good enough internet. Encoder, once again, we went over all this before. I think that's basically it. Once you copy your stream key and you get your streaming thing over here, that should be all you need to know. I would suggest having a mute unmute function, or just using a push to talk key. There are hotkeys here, so you can switch between captures. So like I can switch between Dark Souls 3, Overwatch, PUBG. If you want to be fancy with your stream, you can add things like images, slideshows, videos. If you use VLC, you can choose a video from VLC, or even a good old simple text. And you can add that to your capture. So, thanks for watching, everyone. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. I'll try and keep up with it if anyone has any other questions, but that should be it. Thanks for watching.